Today, we're talking about a guy who made the Roman Empire sweat harder than a toga party in July. Spartacus. He started as just another gladiator, but he ended up leading one of the biggest slave revolts in history. Rome had legions. Spartacus had kitchen knives and bad attitude. And for a while, it was working. So grab your gladius, your popcorn, and maybe a shield. Because this is the story of the man Rome really wished had just stayed in the arena. Spartacus was born in Thrace, which is roughly modern-day Bulgaria and Greece. He may have served as an auxiliary soldier in the Roman army, but at some point he deserted or was captured, depending on which historian you ask. Either way, things didn't end well. He wound up enslaved and sold into gladiatorial training. Now, gladiators weren't volunteering for this gig. Most were slaves, criminals, or prisoners of war. Training schools were brutal, and the games weren't games at all. This wasn't UFC where you tap out. If you lost, you usually got tapped out of existence. Basically, Spartacus went from soldier to slave to gladiator. That's like starting in the NFL, getting arrested, and then being forced to box kangaroos for someone else's entertainment. Spartacus ended up in a gladiator school at Capua, run by a man named Lentulus Batiatus. In 73 BCE, he and about 70 other gladiators decided they'd had enough. They plotted an escape and their weapons, kitchen knives and skewers stolen from the mess hall. Yes, the revolution began with soup ladles. Imagine robbing a bank with a spatula, but somehow it worked. They overpowered the guards, grabbed real weapons once they were free, and escaped to Mount Vesuvius. Yes, the same volcano that would later bury Pompeii. Soon, runaway slaves and disgruntled peasants joined them. The ragtag force quickly swelled into thousands. Spartacus wasn't alone in leadership. He shared command with two other gladiators, Crixus and Oenomaus. At first, Rome didn't take them seriously. They sent a small militia to deal with the escapees. Spartacus crushed them. Rome figured, they're just runaway slaves. How hard could this be? About as hard as trying to stop a stampede with a broom. One of the group's most famous tricks happened at Mount Vesuvius. Roman forces thought they had Spartacus cornered, so his men made ladders out of vines, rappelled down cliffs, and ambushed the Romans from behind. It was such a ridiculous plan that it shouldn't have worked. But it did. Each victory brought in more recruits, and soon Spartacus had tens of thousands of followers. This wasn't just a slave army anymore. His ranks included shepherds, peasants, deserters, and even some poor free citizens who thought following Spartacus was a better deal than being taxed to death by Rome. By this point, Rome sent praetors and consuls with legions to stop him. Again, he beat them. The countryside of Italy was being looted, Roman villas burned, and senators began to panic. Imagine sitting in your fancy marble atrium, sipping wine, and suddenly hearing that 50,000 angry farmers with pitchforks were headed your way. Suddenly, that wine doesn't taste so good. Spartacus, though, wasn't just interested in chaos. He actually wanted to lead his people north over the Alps, out of Italy, and into freedom. But here's the problem. Many of his followers didn't want to leave. Why cross the Alps when Italy was full of loot, wine, and revenge? This split in strategy would haunt him. In the meantime, Spartacus defeated army after army. Near Mount Garganus, Crixus was killed in battle. Rome celebrated, so Spartacus decided to send them a message. He captured Roman soldiers and forced them to fight gladiatorial games in honor of Crixus. It was brutal irony. Their own spectacle turned against them. By 72 BCE, Spartacus commanded nearly 120,000 people. Rome finally got serious. They put Marcus Licinius Crassus in charge, the richest man in Rome and someone desperate to prove himself a general. Crassus reinstated harsh discipline. If his men showed cowardice, he revived an ancient punishment called decimation, executing 1 out of every 10 soldiers. Nothing says team bonding quite like killing your co-workers. Spartacus tried to march south, possibly hoping to cross into Sicily. He arranged for pirate ships to take them across the strait, but the pirates betrayed him. Classic pirate move. Stranded, Spartacus was trapped in southern Italy with Crassus closing in. In 71 BCE, the two armies met at the Battle of the Silarus River. Spartacus fought fiercely. Ancient writers say he cut his way through Roman lines, trying to reach Crassus himself. But the Romans were too many, and Spartacus was killed in battle. His body was never found, but his rebellion died with him. Rome made an example of the survivors. 6,000 captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way, stretching from Capua to Rome itself. Imagine driving down the highway and instead of billboards for McDonald's, you see 6,000 crucified men. It was the biggest "Don't mess with us" advertisement in history. But even with Rome's cruelty, Spartacus's story didn't die. He became a symbol of resistance against oppression. Revolutionaries centuries later admired him. Writers turned him into legend, and Hollywood eventually gave him the spotlight. Spartacus never toppled Rome, but he did rattle it. With nothing but grit, charisma, and stolen kitchen knives, he shook the foundations of the most powerful empire in the world. His rebellion showed that even the mightiest system can be shaken from the bottom up. And while Rome tried to erase his name with crucifixes, history remembered him. Because legends like Spartacus don't die, they inspire the next fight. And that's the story of Spartacus, the gladiator who made Rome sweat. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button harder than Spartacus hit Roman legions. Subscribe for more weird and wild history. And remember, don't trust pirates.